So I'm afraid of being poor. We were poor, but you kind of don't know how poor you are until you compare yourself to other kids. Everything that I went through in the past kind of prepped me for this journey. So I think one of my first dips, I was like stressed out.
Quite big celebrities were babes, like Kim Kardashian.
Lizzo had reached out to babes. That was crazy too. When I started the business book, I didn't think anything was going to come of it. Sometimes the editor will want to change things. And I'm like, you know what? I can put my personal things aside. I want it to be more digestible.
Ciera, welcome to the Inspired by Show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
It's good to have you here. So, one of the things I want to talk about, Ciera, we're going to jump straight in. Obviously, you're here because you are now an author, and your book, by the time this episode is released, your book will be out in the hands of the public, which I'm super excited about. And part of your book, a big part of it is about being an outsider. So, I'd love to start there. Where has this label for you as an outsider come from?
Um, I feel like I've just always felt like I was either different or just didn't have like all the answers. I felt like everyone had the answers but me. Or I felt like my path was never, I meant to go on a traditional path, but I just kept getting like thrown off of it. So I think that's just how it came about. Like, and then there's so many people that felt like that. And then it just kind of created this whole outsider mindset. Like, yeah, there's just so many of us. So that's where it came from.
I love that. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I really resonated with your book is because there's so many experiences of feeling like an outsider, almost like so
Mhm.
many people feel like outsiders, that we're all
We
outsiders
all,
together, right?
right. We're all outsiders together in certain situations. Cause it's like you can be an insider in certain situations when you have it going on and you know all the answers, but then you step into something new, like even like in school, like the first day you're an outsider, or if you feel like you don't have enough money for something, you feel like an outsider. So like anybody can feel like an outsider anytime, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it's something that people become at the beginning, or do you think you can feel like an outsider at any point in your kind of journey?
I think for me, when I'm embarking on something new, I feel like an outsider because I'm just not as confident as as most people are when they're doing things new. That's just for me personally. So I feel like, yeah, it can be at the beginning. It could be in the middle when things shift. I'm just talking about like business, like as far as how my business goes, things are up and down, right? Sales can be up and down, like the market can change all the time. So yeah, at any point you can feel like an outsider for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about Babes as well, obviously your business, as we go through this chat, because I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting to hear what you've done and how different you've done it. So, but before we go into that, when was like the first time you really felt like an outsider? Like, can you remember a time in your childhood or a time early on where you were like the first experience of feeling like an outsider?
Honestly, when I got to school, because I didn't know, like we were poor, but you kind of don't know how poor you are until you compare yourself to other kids. So when I got to school and I was like, oh, like their clothes are ironed and everything looks new and they have like rooms and they have like gifts for Christmas and two parents in the household and just like that comparison, I think that's when I first started to feel like a little like, oh, I'm different. Like I'm
Mm.
not the same. Like I'm on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can kind of relate from my childhood as well. Like I didn't realize how different my family was until I got to school and suddenly saw like all these parents together. My parents divorced when I was like 10 years old and I was an only child. It was such a different experience. And then you suddenly see all these like happy families and you're like, why can't I have that?
Yeah. I know, right? Yeah, it's definitely like relatable. You don't really know because children adapt, right? Like they're fine
Mm.
until they start to see and compare themselves, I think. And yeah,
Mm.
exactly what you said.
Yeah, so true. And so what did you do at that age to adapt? And, did you back then feel like it's okay to not fit in? Because that's a huge part of your message now, right? Or is that something you've kind of
Mhm.
learned on the way?
Oh no, I did not feel like it was okay to fit. I wanted to fit in when I was I didn't learn that till later. It's adulthood. I think I really wanted to fit in. So I would like copy, I would pretend. I never told anybody that we were homeless. I would pretend like I had my own room. I would pretend like we had it together. No, I that was a journey. Like it was a very tough, long, hard journey to try to like get to that to this point now.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think, because you can kind of see then how it's like paved the path. I always find I get to interview some really inspiring people like yourself on the show, and I find that most people that have come from nothing or like a challenging background end up having so much determination to not have that continued. Is that what happened to you on your journey?
Oh yeah, we talk about that in the book. It's using your trauma as a motivator. Like you're so I'm so scared of going back to the way that I was. I'm extremely motivated and I'm a hard worker and I'm just like, no, never again.
Mm,
Like I got out of that and I'm not going back. So it's not like surprising that people that have come from backgrounds like that are so like successful and inspiring now. Yeah,
mm.
100%.
Yeah. Do you think trauma is like a big part of that then? Do you think like we all need to face trauma to like really find that determination?
Oh yeah, it's just looking at it differently. I think it's easy to say, "Oh yeah, just like look at your trauma on the positive side." Like, no, that's hard. It's definitely a hard thing. It's just um using it in a good way. So like with my trauma, there's two ways. So I'm afraid of being poor, which can I can use my trauma in a good and bad way. So there are obviously like I'm really determined and motivated. So those are the good things that have come out of my trauma. The bad things that are coming out of my trauma is I'm cheap. I don't spend my money. I when I have a bad sales day, I get stressed. Like I literally like I feel like I'm back to like poor Ciera. So those like it's a balance. I think it's about balancing your trauma because it's easy to say just like flip it and look at the positive side, but that's
Mm,
hard.
yeah. Yeah. Do you know what, Sarah? I can really relate in business. You know, when you have, I feel like you can sometimes heal some trauma and go through it and feel better. But then like old patterns can creep back up, right? Like you say, if you have like a bad sales day.
It doesn't go anywhere. Like when people are like, "Oh, I healed my trauma." I don't know. It's still there. It's just like it's just underlying. It's just over here somewhere. You know what I mean? And you just got to push it back and just say, "Hey, stay over there. Like we know you're here." It's just about using it differently. It's not going to go anywhere. So you have to just learn how to deal with it and use it.
Yeah, exactly. And one question I've got for you, Sarah, is where do you think that fear of being poor on that trauma came from? Because for me, I have a similar fear of stability. Like I crave stability. Like it's not just like I want an influx of cash. I want to have like the regular, stable. That's like
Mhm.
me, right? But I know that's come from my childhood and the issues I had with my parents and so on. Where would you say your trauma like stems from? Was there ever a moment in your life and as a child that you had that trauma triggered?
I think moving a lot. So I didn't go to a school for more than 2 years until I got to middle school. So I was at a different school like
Wow.
every year. Also, our living situation changed a lot. So I never had a technically a room or a stable home until I got to, yeah, high school, until I got to high school. So it's just, that's where mine comes from. It's like constantly. So just having somewhere like, I'm going to be here. This is my room. I can close my door. Like I'm going to be here for more than like 6 months and 7 months. And, and I have a savings account. And if I
Mm.
do have a bad sales day, I'm going to be okay. So I mean, that's where mine comes from for sure. Yeah, definitely my past.
Mm, wow. And what changed then from that sort of instability to then having your own room? And was there something in your life or your childhood that actually changed to help you have that?
Um, my mom's my mom eventually just got a break. Like whenever I got to high school, she started taking advantage of free resources, which is something that we talk about in the book. But because before that, my mom she wasn't taking advantage of free resources. A lot of people didn't know our situation. So I think when she started talking about it, then we started to create a village around us to help us. So that's what
Mm.
changed for her, which it changed for me for sure. Like that. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that part in the book. And I think I'm going to try really hard not to talk too much about what we're going to talk about what's in the book, but without assuming
Okay.
everyone's read it, right? Because guys, you need to read this book.
Right, right,
Like
right.
that's the answer.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as well. So I often find that a lot of us learn from our parents as well, right? So like we either learn good things from our parents or we're like, I never want to be like
And
that. I want to be the opposite, right?
yeah. Those
You
are the
live
things
more.
that stick. Those are the things that stick more. Like the things I do not want to do that. Those are the things
Yeah.
that stick harder. So yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry,
how
I cut off your question.
yeah,
Sorry.
don't worry, don't worry. It's exactly what I was going to say. How did you
Okay.
find your parents in your childhood? I know there was stuff in the book where you talked about, your father and so on. So sort of tell me a little bit about that.
My mom, I learned what to do from her resilience and just being a single mom and taking care of me and my sister and just always making it work. And it was always pleasant. My mom was never like, oh, like obviously she was stressed, but we as the kids, we were just like, oh, we're in the car for the night. Like she made it fun. So I learned just like that positive mindset, but I also learned what not to do, which is like depend on people, depend on men.
Mhm.
Throughout, which is fine if you're married. Sorry, if you're married or in a family. But in the book, I talk about like our living situations depended on like who my mom was dating at the time, or like if this person was going to pay the rent, or if we were able to sleep on this person's couch. So I learned not to depend, always have your safety net. I think that's what I learned not to do from my mom.
Mm. Now, I just wanted to quickly interrupt this episode to share a quick message with you. Now, I've been hosting these interviews with Inspired by Show for a while now, and I've been loving all of the great feedback from our listeners. And it really means a lot when you all share from listening to these episodes, watching these episodes, share your incredible feedback. And I love that you love it as much as we do. Now, my mission for the Inspired by Show is to inspire others to challenge the norm, share their story, knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable and shock horror, take the mask off and be raw and real. So I have a favor to ask. Can you help me on this mission by sharing this episode with someone who you think needs to hear this message? Maybe there's a friend, a loved one, a colleague, or someone that you know that would really benefit from hearing this inspiring story. If you could do that to help us, help even more people to challenge the norm and push themselves out of their own comfort zone, then I'd really appreciate it. So if you haven't already, share this episode with a friend, a loved one, a colleague, or someone that you know would benefit. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, I completely relate. I was exactly the same. And I think sometimes it's a shame when you look back and you think that you had to learn that way, but also partly you might not be where you are now if you didn't learn those lessons, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because if I mean, maybe it's tricky, like depending on people. It's because they can take it away, and that's my trauma. So my
Mm,
trauma, that's a good and bad trauma because sometimes you can depend on someone and they want to help you. But for me, my dealing with my trauma, I'm like, no, you're going to take it away. So I don't want the help. And that's something
mm,
that people that have backgrounds like mine struggle with. So it's just a balance of like taking the help as you need it, but don't depend completely on it. Always have your safety net.
yeah, totally. And I'm curious for you, Ciera, obviously reading the book, one of the things I loved in the book was the roadmap to success. I thought
Mhm.
we work with a lot of books and I saw it and I just thought it was so awesome. So
Oh,
I'm
cool.
curious from your perspective, how did you go from that life to suddenly founder of Babes, like incredible success story with Babes? What was the journey?
Um, I felt like everything, it sounds corny. I was literally talking to my friend about this the other day in an elevator. I was like, this sounds corny, but I do feel like all of the everything that I went through in the past kind of prepped me for this journey. Doors were just like whenever I was in Houston, because I moved from Houston to LA, Houston just wasn't working out. After I graduated college, I couldn't find a job. Maybe I'm just a terrible interviewer, interviewee. No one would hire me. I thought like, oh, I have a degree. Like I'm gonna leave college and all the jobs are just gonna fall in my lap and I'm gonna get married and like have the two kids. And none of that was working for me. But when I moved here and I kind of stepped into like my passion, the doors just started opening. Like everything just started working out. Like my first post on Instagram where I was like, you know what? I want to go against, because remember back in 2012 on Instagram, if you remember back in
Hmm.
the day when Instagram first started, everyone was smoothing out their skins to look like freaking crazy people. Like we were overly editing. Everyone was just like, it
Mm.
looked a little insane. And my first post was of my cellulite. I was like, I'm gonna show my I want to show my cellulite and I want to embrace like who I am. And that just kind of it it blew me up. Like it blew me up. I had like a my Instagram following went up really quickly. I was able to start my brand and everything just kind of moved in the right direction. So I think that once I stepped into like being different and embracing that, the doors just started
Mhm.
opening. I know as corny as that sounds, it did. It did for
Yeah.
me.
It's true though,
Mhm.
right? I always say to people like the more honest you can be, the more raw and real you can be. I think if we all just try and fit in and we all just look the same and sound the same, like no one's going to resonate, right? Whereas you're probably the
Yeah,
only one doing that, and most people would go, "What? You
right.
showed your cellulite? That's crazy." But actually, it's led you on to creating your own massive brand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if for sure, like that's exactly what is the book that's exactly what the book is about. And that's exactly what life is about. It's just like be
Mm.
yourself. Because once you start comparing and copying other people, you're just like this watered down version of the thing that you copied. And everything just you might as well just step into who you are because there's only one person like you that
Mm.
thinks the way you do or has your perspective. So you might as well, like it's the smartest thing to do and
Yeah,
everything will fall. Yeah.
totally. And so where did Babes come from, your fashion brand? Did you always want to do your own fashion brand, or is that just kind of like something you thought of one day?
No, I kind of fell into it. I wanted to work in PR. That's what I went to college for, PR marketing. So I wanted to find a job when I got out here. But when I got out here, I didn't have any money. So I was staying on one of my friend's couch and she gave me an ultimatum and she told me like I had until the end of the month to come up with half the rent. So I started thrifting again, which is something that has always been a part of my childhood because obviously we didn't have a lot of money. My mom used to flip, she would go to vintage stores and sell like the vintage or upcycle them and flip them and sell them to for money. So I kind of fell back into that, something I learned from my mother. And then gradually I started selling more and more. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this is a business here. And that's when Babes began. Babes began from Thrift. And then we went
Wow.
into cut and sew. And then I started channeling, just embracing like my body and all body types. And it just kind of grew from there.
Insane. And I saw when I was doing the research and speaking to your publisher that you've had some quite big names, quite big celebrities wear Babes, like Kim Kardashian, a few others. What was that like?
It was crazy when she wore it, I saw it because I sell basics, which is always I'm not like Babes is what I always wanted Babes to be is just effortless basics that are affordable. So I can't tell when someone wears my stuff sometimes because it'll be just like a white dress or a black dress because
Mm.
those are my favorite things in my closet. So those are the things that I sell. So when she wore it, I'm like, wait a minute, that that looks like my dress. And I'm not crazy. Is that my dress? I'm a little confused. So I reached out to someone that knew one of her stylists, and they confirmed that she had bought it herself on my site and she wore it. So that was, I mean, that was insane. I'm
Mm.
completely thankful for that. Yeah, for sure. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And same with Lizzo. Lizzo had reached out to Babes actually and was like, hey, like I want some of these items. So yeah, that was crazy too. Super blessed to have those things
Wow.
happen.
And before that point, did you ever feel like you'd made it, or did it feel different after that point?
I did feel like I made it before that point. I did. This was a different level because it was new eyes, but I did feel like I made it just because I had made it. I was stable. I had a savings account. Like these were the things that mattered to me.
Mm.
I was able to take care of myself. I was able to take care of my mother and my family. And Babes was at its peak at that moment. And that just kind of took it off to a different audience.
Mm.
Yeah, so for sure. I definitely thought I made it before then, but it was extra help.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
You're like, I'm not going to say no.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah. And she'd actually, it was interesting. She bought a dress that wasn't selling. So I had this, it was like a mock neck dress, which is a lesson that I tell to a lot of people that have stores. Like if you're like I created something and my confidence fell when it didn't sell because I was like, okay, this is like obviously not cute because no one's buying it. But that's the dress that she bought. And then it was crazy. Now the dress is sold out. Now it's like everybody wants it. So it's just being confident in what you have in the beginning. So that's always interesting to me that she bought a dress that like no one else wanted and then everybody wanted it.
Yeah. Do you know one of the things that I really drives me mad a little bit about being an entrepreneur is that a lot of the time our emotions or self-esteem are driven by the results in our business, right? Like you were just saying, it's like 1 minute you feel like you're doing great and the next minute it's not selling and it's like it can knock us. Have you ever felt that that's gotten better or easier, or is it still the same for you?
It's a journey. It depends on the day. I think us as women, particularly just because we are like we already have so much going on just in our bodies for one. And it's a constant struggle because I'm so tied into brands like into not brands, into babes. Like I
Mm.
feel like babes is me. So sometimes it can feel like if something doesn't sell, I feel like I failed. Like I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. So it can feel, it's a very emotional process selling because you're trying to get someone to spend their hard-earned money on you. And when they don't do it, it can hurt your feelings. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So after a while, it does get better, but it doesn't go away. Like, not for me at least.
Mm.
It's a constant, like if I had a release today and it did well, but if it wouldn't have done well, that would have hurt my feelings a little bit. It would have,
Mm.
but I would have pushed harder like after this call, I'd have been like, all right, let me reshoot the skirt. Like, what can I do to make them buy it? But it definitely would
Mm.
have like hurt my feelings a little bit. Luckily, it
Yeah.
didn't. So.
Yeah. You're like, let's just take that off as a big win, and then it doesn't have enough to worry about it. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
right.
really value though? Like what you just said, Ciera, is really important because I don't think you realized it, but you were just there like, if it didn't work, I would have done something else to make it work. Like I think that's the level of like adaptability and flexibility that makes a good entrepreneurial business owner or high achiever, right? It's because if
Mhm.
this doesn't work, we don't sit there and
Yeah,
sulk and go, oh, that could have been better. It's like, no,
yeah.
no, like time is still ticking.
What are
What
you
can we
gonna
do?
do? Like, right, exactly. You know what not to do. So, like, if something doesn't work, I'm like, okay, they don't like this. Let me. It's sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is the product. Sometimes they don't like the product. Sometimes it's
Mm.
the way you shot it. Sometimes it's when you're releasing it. Sometimes it's how you're releasing it. Sometimes it's the damn algorithm and they just don't see it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Sometimes it's a little time. Sometimes it's too expensive and people need to like figure out how they're going to budget. So there's a lot of different factors that you can dive into if something doesn't work. And that's exciting to me. Obviously, the failure isn't exciting to me, but trying to get over it, like once you failed at something and then you know what not to do and then you fix it, it's so powerful. You're like, yeah, like I
Mm.
figured that ish out. I'm trying not to curse. I figured that ish out. You know what I mean? And it feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Don't worry. If you curse, it comes out. I do it all the time. I'm trying my hardest not to
Ish.
most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned though failure though, because Ciera, I'm curious. Obviously, your family were a huge part of your childhood and the trauma, and your beliefs probably quite similar to theirs. How were they when you started Babes at the beginning and then going on to the success you've got now?
My family, oh, supportive. My mom is like, I mean, my mom is everything. Like, she's the reason why I think I have skills, but really they came from her. You know what I mean? Like, she's probably looking at me like, darling, I've taught you this. And I'm like, yeah, this is coming naturally to me. No, no, no. It comes from her. Most of the things that come natural to me are coming from her. I know that. So she's just like, she's completely been a part of the process. My sister has been completely a part of, she used to bottle for Babes. She was working for Babes. She's like, it's a definitely like a completely supportive family behind it.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I love it because a lot of people don't always get that, right? A lot of people will get the whole like someone in their friendship group or family will say, oh, why don't you get a
Get a
real
job.
job? Yeah, we said it at the
Oh,
exact same time.
oh, literally. But it only comes, You know what? I started looking at it differently because my boyfriend's parents, well, he was raised by his grandparents. So, of course, and he's an entrepreneur too. So they're like, what are you doing? Go get a good government job with some benefits. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? So sometimes it's not, I look at the other generation and they don't mean it in like a negative way. They're just trying to protect you. Like that's all they know. This is like confusing to them. So sometimes you just have to show them because they're just not like, just do your thing, show them, show them that it's at making actual money, and then they'll start to respect it later. But it's
Yeah.
coming from a good place. They only want the best for you. So it's just like, I hear you. Like, you want me to go get a job and get some benefits, but let me show you the new way of doing things.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they'll decide.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, let me show you rather than tell you, because then you'll actually believe it.
Show, don't tell them. They're gonna be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. The proof is in the pudding. I think whenever it was interesting because whenever we started dating, he's an entrepreneur. He does the same thing that I do. So whenever I came and was introduced, they didn't take me seriously either until I started sharing my numbers. I was like, oh no, no, no. This isn't just like a little online store. Like we're making actual money. I have
Mhm.
employees. Like, so the proof is in the pudding, like showing better than telling for sure in those cases.
Yeah. And what you mentioned there about obviously like having the real numbers in the business. One of the things that I've learned from interviewing lots of people and also being my own business owner is sometimes the highs are high, but the lows can be equally as low. What would you say has been like one of the biggest challenges, Ciera, you've had on your journey, and how did it feel?
Um, when I first made $0 in a day. So Babes was constantly growing every single year. So our profits were like, we would go from yearly 500 and then we would go to 1 million and then we would go to 2 million. And then one year it started to dip. And that's when the challenge that I think that's when my personal challenges came because I was emotionally tied to everything. And obviously, we talked about my trauma. So I was like, oh, the jig is up. Like everything's done. Like now we're going downhill, but not really realizing that entrepreneurship is kind of like this. You're going to go down and you're going to go up. So I think one of my first dips, I was like, stressed out. But now that I'm on the journey, I'm kind of used to it. Like one bad sales day is fine. I mean, like a million aren't okay. You need to figure some stuff out. But it's like it's gonna happen. It's just about just getting back in there and figuring out like how to make that money again.
Mm, yeah, definitely. And you went on to do that, right? Like Babes has been
Yeah,
growing
I
and
definitely.
doing so well.
Oh yeah, I definitely went on to do that, but there are, I mean, we still have those days. People don't talk about them enough,
Mm,
but I do. Like in my group, because most of my friends are entrepreneurs and they do have businesses, and I talk money. I have those uncomfortable conversations that people don't want to have. So no matter how successful you are, unless you're Apple or Amazon or whatever, or
mhm,
any of those people, you may come up on a bad sales day. Like not everybody has it all together all the time, despite what you think. So it's
mm.
gonna happen. It's just about like pivoting and shifting when it does.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of pivoting, obviously we're here today because you've written a book, and I'm kind of curious, like, how did you go from founding Babes and doing really well and having the celebrities wearing it to now suddenly writing a book? What happened?
Well, so my mom got really sick in 2018. So I was technically working nonstop from like working and slash living in a hospital. At that time, one of my friends, she's an author, and she was like, you should write a business book, obviously, because I had a lot of time and just because that was something that I've always wanted to do. So it initially started as a business book, just a plain business book.
Mm,
And my idea of a business book is just like, there's this business book that I like. It's literally called The Business Book. I don't know if you've read it. Most people, it just says the business book and it has facts. Like there's no story. There's just like, these are the facts. This is what you do to get to this point. And that's what I wanted to make. I did. And then as I started slowly sharing my story within like pieces of the business book, then it became a business memoir, which initially I was kicking and screaming about because I do have, I'm the type of person that although I've been through something, I'm never the type to be like, I was homeless. Like, let me talk about it and share all of my
Mm,
trauma. It's a very uncomfortable, it still is a very uncomfortable like space to be in, although it's necessary, I think, to help other people like me. I feel like I'm babbling right now, but it eventually changed into a business memoir, which it is now. I forgot the
mm,
question, girl.
yeah.
If you let me ramble, I'm just gonna start rambling.
No, it's great. It's exactly what I asked. The key is about like
Okay.
where the book came from. And I love that you mentioned there because there's a lot of like people that think you either have a business book, which is like facts and figures and how to, or you have a memoir, but there can be both, right? You can actually add value and advice and tell stories.
Yeah, I didn't know that, honestly. I was one of the people that I was like, okay, memoir or business book, because I didn't want to write a memoir because I don't even really like reading memoirs like that. And
Mm.
I don't share my business like that. And it's very uncomfortable. Like, so whenever I went into the memoir, I remember this woman told me in the beginning, she said, you're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate it. Like everyone hates it. It's like therapy on paper, and you have to get that out because and it's very uncomfortable and it's very emotional and you're going to feel like naked. But at the end of it, you're going to make something beautiful, which I did, but it's definitely been a journey. Like anyone writing a memoir, you're about to like put your life on paper. Yeah, it's going to be good luck.
I love that. I was exactly the same, Ciera, because my first book, we've published with our services like 46 best-selling books at the time of recording this, right? But my first book was like a by accident book. It was kind of the same sort of thing. And I remember writing it thinking I'd healed everything. Like we talked about trauma earlier. I was like, I'm good. I got this now. And then I was writing and I was
Oh
like,
no,
oh, what's this emotion? I thought I was over this.
what is this coming up? Why did I do that again and again? And why am I still doing that now? I thought I learned from that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things. When you were writing it, you mentioned there that the advice you were given. What other advice were you given from other authors or other people that you valued on the writing journey?
I think not being so selfish. So there were things I didn't want to share, obviously, because I'm very private. But it's like at the end of the day, what is your goal? Like keeping your goal. Like my beginning goal was to help people like me or help people that have backgrounds like me. So sharing, you know, not being selfish, basically, like not trying, thinking about the goal and always thinking about like, does this help someone? If so, do it. If it doesn't, then leave it out. You know what I mean? So just
Mm.
keeping your goal in mind throughout was helpful to me.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And was there any advice you wish you'd been given?
Hmm. I think I wish I had an answer for that. I think I was given pretty good advice. I don't
Awesome.
have, I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to think of something. If I come up with something, I'll shout it out later.
Yeah, do.
Yeah.
And what about if you were
Okay.
giving advice to someone else writing a book now? Because a lot of our readers are writing books. Is there anything you would be like, oh my gosh, do this or don't do this?
Like writing just a book in general.
Yeah.
Um, use the help around you because me, I felt like if you're published, if you're fortunate enough to be like and you're not self-published, you're fortunate enough to be published because I'm very fortunate to be published with Portfolio Penguin. I'm like, wow, thank you guys. If you're fortunate enough, use them and use all of their efforts to help you because I'm like a little bit of a control freak and I feel like I can do everything at all times. So there's a lot of different, I mean, they're experts for a reason. It's like use them, use their resources, what
Mm.
they've done, like they've solidified themselves as Penguin for a reason. So like, yeah, definitely like use them and try to I mean, yeah, try to get published.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Just,
helpful.
yeah, do it the best way. I always say to people, like, make sure you've got a team around you because writing a book can be so lonely, right? It's like climbing a mountain. And if you're on your own, and there'll be
Yeah.
times where we're like not motivated or we're questioning it over and over and over. It's like whoever you can surround yourself, whether that's publishers, team, editors, like just leverage people, right?
And keep those relationships. Like now they're becoming my friends. Like
Mm.
my editor, I text all the time. My marketing team, I text all the time. I mean, throughout this journey, obviously, because I'm writing a memoir and they know all of my business, it's a very personal thing. So it does feel like a little family, you know? So
Mm.
yeah, definitely use your family to help you because it can be lonely because you feel like it's just you, especially if you're writing a memoir. Like it's
Mm.
you. Like I'm the one. If you're anything like me, you may have had doubts like if this doesn't work, it's because of me. I felt it because it's my story. My face is on the cover. I
Mm.
wrote it, you know, so it doesn't do well, but there also is a whole team around you, and it's their responsibility to help make it work too. So it's a group effort. It's not just you. Don't feel alone.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And also, like you say, ask for their advice, their help, because I find that as the author, we're so emotionally intertwined with the words that we're writing that sometimes it's good to have someone that's not as emotionally connected to go, no, 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 like we need to change that or take that out.
Be open to it and be open to changing. You know, I'm open to changing because I just want it to be digestible for everyone. So coming from
Mm.
like, it was interesting because obviously I'm a Black woman, as you can see. But I'm not speaking to only Black women. I'm not, and I'm also not only speaking to women. So the
Mm.
way that I talk, like sometimes the editor will want to change things and I would feel like I would have a pushback for that. And they're like, well, this isn't easily digestible for everyone. And I'm like, you know what? I can put my personal things aside. I want it to be more digestible for everybody. So just being open to changing in areas that you can, not too much so it's not you anymore, but you want to get your book in the hands of as many people as possible and change as many lives as possible. So taking those things into consideration. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, definitely. And speaking of editors and publishers, did you start writing The Outsider Advantage before you were working with Penguin, or how did you actually get on Penguin's radar?
So I started the business book. I thought, you know, when I started the business book, I didn't think it was anything was going to come of it. I was just writing it. I was writing for therapy. I was writing it for something to do, and just because I was enjoying it. And then I was lucky enough that one of my friends, she's an author, she's a best-selling author. She's been doing this for a while. She introduced me to her agent, and the agent shopped around my scribble scratch business book. And I'm like, no one's gonna care about this. Like, why would anybody want this? And they did. Like, what the heck? And that's when it started. Um, yeah, I forgot the question, but yeah, that's how things started
Wow.
for me.
And then, so when the agent was like, actually, I'm interested, what was going through your mind?
I was like, okay, I guess I didn't think anything was going to happen. So I didn't take it seriously at first until the big names started coming through. Because when your book and then it went to auction. And I'm
Mm.
like, wait, so multiple people want this? Like, are you guys sure you guys want this scribble scratch? Like, I'm so confused. Because at the time, that's what I felt like it was. But they saw something bigger than what I had written at first. And then we started after Penguin bought the book, that's when we started officially writing the full thing. But it's changed since then too. Like I told you, it was a business book,
Mm.
strictly a business book. We've changed it and there's been many edits. So it's been a long journey to get to where it's at now.
Yeah, wow. And when you were finished writing, or even now, because obviously it's almost out by the time we're releasing this episode, it will be out, and I'd highly recommend you guys have a read of it and grab a copy. Did it make you want to write another book? Were there any ideas that came up where you're like, oh, I want to do that next?
I kind of no, yes and no. Yes, because I feel like the second time around, I know what I'm doing. Like it's not new to me anymore. Like I'm an author now. Like I'm not this person no one's hasn't heard of. Like I've actually written a book, so my second book is gonna be so in that regards. But as far as the process, I need a break. I need a break. Like I do need a break before writing like something else because I feel like I put everything into this. I feel like I'm naked and everyone's just gonna buy the book and see everything. So I think, yeah, a little break is due before I come up with something else.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like you said earlier, it depends on the reaction, right? If it can be really motivating, or you could actually be like, do you know what? I'm quite happy with that. I'm glad I did it. Like milestone tick, but now on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are other things. So it's just I think I want to wait until, yeah, seeing the reaction and then going from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And obviously, I've got a copy of the book here, right? So for anyone who hasn't got it, you're missing out on what I'm about to share. But one of the things I really liked, Ciera, as I mentioned, we mentor people in writing books. We've published loads of books. And I love how different your book's laid out. So it's really quite cool where you've got the affirmations on every chapter. You've got the roadmap for success at the beginning, yours, and then you've got a blank one at the back for other people. How much did you get a say on that design side? Was that your
All
idea?
of it.
Like, tell me about that.
All of it, every single part of it. Just because I'm very particular with what goes out. So the actual roadmap, what's written on there, the shading of the gray, because I wanted color, but I didn't know how expensive color is to put in books. That's
Yeah.
something I didn't know. Like, hey, okay. They were like, oh no, we're doing this black and white. So at first it was just black and white, but then I wanted to like shade it. Every little part of it, I had they allowed me to have say so
Mm,
in it, which I'm lucky about. I think because I'm in a creative industry, so they trusted me with that. But visually, yeah, like every single part of it, even the little
mm.
emojis, like I add the little emojis to the roadmap.
I saw
So
it.
everything. Mhm.
Yeah. And how important was it to you to have your own creative control? Because I know with a lot of publishers, people don't get quite that.
It was really important because you ultimately want, because it's my face is on there, like whatever happens in this book, people are going to think that it was my idea. So I need to have like some sort of like say so. Obviously, I took a lot of their advice, but at the end of the day, the decision was mine, which I was appreciative of. So yeah, it was very important because it's like it's my first presentation to the world. Like it's really important to have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned obviously we in the book, every chapter has an affirmation, and at the end you've got the summary of them. Um, where did the affirmations come from?
I think throughout this very uncomfortable process of writing a memoir, I had to use them. Like there was like writing each chapter was so by the end of it, I felt like so drained. There were questions of like there was a lady that was hired to literally like bring out my story and to kind of like help me with therapy throughout each chapter. So the affirmations were just reminders of like things that I could still use today that could help me like emotionally deal because a lot of these things I'm still dealing with. Like my mother is still sick, so that's still a constant journey. Entrepreneurship is still like something that is like up and down. So these things are still helping me today. Like when I read it, I'm like, okay, this is a good reminder. Like I am not alone. Like I can do this and I can do that. So yeah, those are amazing that I was able to put those in because I can still use them currently
Mm,
today.
yeah. I think affirmations never get old, do they? It's like usually the ones that you need are always there. Like I'm not alone. I
Yeah,
can
they're always
really
there.
resonate with that.
Right. Yeah, you can use them at any time. Like some days you may not need them, but then other days you will. And then yeah, it depends.
Yeah. And when it came to your getting your book finished, did at any point
Mhm.
you give the book to any of your friends or family or who knew you, like your partner, to get them to read it and share their thoughts?
I did, but I was so nervous. For some reason, it was easier giving it to like strangers than people close to me.
Hmm.
I don't know what's wrong. It's something about it because I felt like oh, sorry about that. I felt like if they didn't like it or didn't feel like it was like true to me, it would affect me more. So that was like that took me a while to get to. Those are the last people I gave it to. I first gave it to strangers to get their opinions because I wanted to get like just like an off opinion of like, how do I come off? Do I come off bitchy? Do I come off like tell me like exactly how I come off? The my close people, that was like definitely a struggle for me. I think because their opinions mean so much to me that it was nerve-wracking at first.
Mm.
Luckily, my sister's like, oh, this book is actually good, Ciera. And I'm like, oh, thank you. She's like, if I didn't know you, I would read it. I'm like, okay, great. Because my sister's very much, she's very, very honest and she's going to tell you how it is. So I was afraid of her opinion the most. So her telling me that meant the world to me that she would care about the book if she wasn't my sister. So, and of course she was there throughout all of it. So it resonated like as true to her. So that meant a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Did you get any like negative feedback or people sharing like, I think you should do this differently?
Yep. There was one that, yep. And I changed the chapter because of it. I
Wow.
got negative feedback for a chapter that we mentioned BLM, we mentioned George Floyd, and just like how I struggled with that, how all Black people, all types of people, how uncomfortable it was, how difficult it was running a business and just like mentally not going crazy during that time. But that chapter was extremely triggering to everyone that I read it to, and everyone had like different opinions. So I shifted it because of that, because I didn't want to be insulting. I wanted to like stay true to how we all felt. And at the end of it came something beautiful, but I'm glad I read it and got that feedback and got that honest feedback before I put it out to the world.
Mm. It's so important, isn't it? Because I think I see so many people get feedback on their books and they're like, I'm not going to listen to that feedback. And like, but this is really important,
I love
especially if
the
it's not just
feedback.
one person, right?
Oh yeah, give me the feedback. I love the feedback. I mean, I think the feedback is great as long as it's coming from a good place. And it's about who you ask. You don't want to ask a complete hater. You want to ask someone that you respect. And
Mm.
I ask all different types of people, not just people that like love you and are just going to be like, everything you do is great. You need to ask people that are kind of going to be honest and real with you. And I
Mm.
did, and I'm so glad I did. And I did it in time to be able to change a lot of things in that chapter.
Brilliant. And it's I think the book's written so well and it's so like even though I'm not based in the US and like similar journey actually is quite interesting to read, but I think it's one of those things that it works for anyone, which is why it's I love the irony of it because it's like out the outsider advantage, but actually it helps everyone. Just see what I mean? It's like quite a cool
Yeah.
irony.
I love that. I'm going to use that. I love that. Yeah, I think it's easily digestible, which is great. Like, because we all like know what, I mean, you may want to read a dictionary every now and again, but sometimes you just need like, I think it's an easy read. I think it's like, it moves. I'm talking about my own book. Like, yeah, I think it's an easy read. Sounds weird. But yeah, I agree. And I'm happy that it resonated with you not being here. And honestly, like everyone I talk to has said, like, I can relate to this. I can relate to
Mhm.
that. And that means so much to me. I'm like, okay, this is because this is bigger than me. This is all of us, and we all can relate. And that makes me so happy to hear you say that you can relate
Mhm.
to a lot of the situations and the things that I'm saying in the book.
Yeah, definitely. Even like obviously not having a fashion brand, but having a business, having there's so many hurdles that we face and we go through. I'm curious for you, Ciera, who's inspired you on your journey, whether it's the writing journey or the business journey? Is there anyone that you've looked up to or admired that's helped you?
Definitely my mom, just because not in a mom way, but just in a like, as I became an adult and when I started to be like out on my own, I realized like, how could I have done this while having two kids? No way. I can barely do
Mm.
it having a dog. Like, I'm like, the dog is too much. So just like her, like, and how she was able to raise us, and we're not completely crazy, and we're both like intelligent women and not in jail. She did a good job. I definitely like I admire like everything that she's done
Mm.
and being able to raise us in such like in worse circumstances than I have with two kids or any single mom. I'm like, how do you guys do it? I don't get it. I went to this event last night where they were honoring moms in entertainment, and it was so sweet. And it really made me like, wow, like I'm not a mom, but just like being able to maneuver the world and be a single mom and do it all on your own and work and still not go crazy at the end of the day. That's something I like truly admire.
Yeah, I totally agree. As a woman, it's like how will things change in future families, partners. Yeah, I'm very fortunate. My
Yeah.
partner works in our business as well. So similar to yours being
Okay.
entrepreneurial, I think they just like get it, right? It's so much easier
Yeah.
having someone that just gets it
Yeah.
because then you feel like you're not choosing between your partner and your baby business. Like
I
it's kind
know.
of like that.
Isn't that the thing now? Like I feel like partners, I don't know, like being in the same space helps, right? Because then
Mhm.
they do get it. They get your long hours. We're both like hustling. We're both out here. No one's like, where are you? Why
Mm.
aren't you home cooking my dinner? Or maybe he still may be, because sometimes my boyfriend does that. But it's more understanding because they're going through the same thing. So yeah, it's definitely helpful for sure.
Yeah, totally. And I think when they've not necessarily seen you from the beginning, but they know where you started, I think that's so important. And Ciera, you've obviously come so far since you started on Instagram in 2012, right? Are you still as active online? Are you still with your roots on Instagram? Is it still a big part of you?
I try. It can be Instagram has changed so much since the beginning. It's kind of, I was talking to my friend about this. It can really, you need breaks sometimes. It's like in the beginning, it was more fun. And
Mm,
now sometimes it's triggering. Sometimes it could affect your mental health a lot. So I am active on there as much as I can be, but sometimes I do need those breaks. I do need to mute certain accounts that trigger me. I do need to like just step back. So it's a balance. It's changed a lot from the beginning. So it's not the same relationship. I still have a relationship with it, but sometimes I need a break.
yeah, I'm exactly the same. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it, sometimes I just want to delete it.
Oh my God, all the time. If I didn't have a business that depended on social media, I would delete it. I wouldn't have it because it's just yeah, depending on the day, it could really affect your mental health. And if you're not feeling if you're feeling like you're being affected negatively by the app, just at least delete it for the day or mute it for the day or get off of
Mm,
it for the day. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Sometimes I say to my friends who aren't like in business, I'm like, I wish I could go back to just using it just for one day before it was business related, just to just remember how fun that was.
Yeah, just posting like, oh, I'm having water and I'm not trying to sell it. Like
Yeah.
just I'm just here. And I'm not like thinking about what people are gonna think about it or if like, yeah, I miss those days of just like easy Instagram, not trying to sell and just enjoying, just sharing your life for sure.
Mm, yeah, exactly. It definitely changed. I think there's still more community styles, but I think there's a lot of community that we can have outside of Instagram as well, right? And like you say, you start to know other authors, you start to know other entrepreneurs. Um, how much has that changed for you since writing your book? Have you managed to get more connected with other authors? Have you gone into those sort of circles now as well?
Yes, I started now. Yeah, yes. The answer is yes. I'm slowly getting to, I still need more authors in my circle. So if you know any of them, I'm willing to just like follow and stalk all their pages because I do stalk Instagram pages for a living. I feel no. But yeah, my circle does include more authors, more business people, but I have space for more. Like I
Mm,
bring them on.
nice. Yeah, I love that. Um, so Ciera, we're almost running out of time. I can't believe how fast this has gone. I feel like we haven't even jumped into the detail of the book. But what's next for you? Obviously, you've got Babes is doing so well. Book is out
Mhm.
now. What's next for Ciera Rogers?
Um, I would make a movie. I'm a film buff. Like that's one of my biggest passions. Like I have a Tarantino poster like right behind
No
me and all
way.
throughout my office. I'm literally like if I can make a movie next, that would just be my dream come true. So hopefully that's next for me.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. I didn't even recognize that poster, but yeah, you're right. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's like
Cool.
but it's probably too gory because it's Kill Bill. This is her
Yeah,
fight scene in the middle. But yeah,
I
this is
love
all
it.
throughout my office. Different things.
Yeah, why not though? That's the whole point, right? Is like be the business owner, run your own business, and then you can have whatever office you like.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But if that would be next to me, that would be a dream come true.
Mm.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, that would be my next move.
Let's make it happen. Oh, I love it. Oh, Sarah, it's been awesome having you, and we've been truly inspired by you today. So thank you so much. We have a tradition on the show with our final
Okay.
question. So, last question is
Uh-oh.
for you. Obviously,
Okay.
today we've been inspired by you. Who do you know that has an inspiring story or a book that you think we should have on the show next?
Oh dang, I didn't prepare for this one. A story or book? Hmm. Oh damn, we're gonna have to edit this because I'm gonna think about
Yeah, don't
this.
worry. You can
Okay.
it can be anyone you know, or it can be like someone you think that would be good for the show or would openly talk about their book, whatever.
Okay, as far as book goes, I think people I don't know anyone that's writing a book that should be
Or it
on
could
your
be
show.
entrepreneurs then. Could be people who have brands if that's better.
Mm, damn, why am I being stumped on the last question? I'm gonna get this out. Okay.
Take your time.
Hmm. I don't know why I'm gonna say my boyfriend. It's so corny. Because I do feel like his story is so unique. So he was I think he should write a book, honestly. I do. Cause he was a social worker for like a lot of his life, but um so he used to go into like houses and either what was it called? Like you take the kid away or you don't take the kid away. What was
Mm.
it? It's like a certain type of social work. But the stories that he has told me about that experience and how it's like shifted the way that he like handles things today, I really do think that that's like a part of the world that we don't really talk about. Like, I think that he should write a book about that.
Mm.
And just like how many of the families he's helped, because he's told me like because there's a lot of situations where the kids should be taken away, obviously because the parents suck. But there are some things that are just based off of culture. So like if someone would have came into my mom's house when I was younger, they probably would have taken me away because we didn't have a fridge, we didn't have a room. But culturally we were fine. Like that's how a lot of Black and poor families live. So he would go in those situations and not take the kids away. But another social worker, if they would have came in there, they would have taken the kids away. So I think that he should write a book about just that process and hiring the right social worker to be in the right area so that kids can stay with their families depending on the situation. I don't know if that was a good answer, but that's just like what
Yeah.
came up to mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Do you know, it's so interesting,
Okay.
though, isn't it? Because it's so subjective. There's no like a right or wrong. There's no like a checklist that you can be like, if these books aren't ticked, then, take the child away. So yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it really depends. And sometimes people in the government who work these jobs can be very like list driven, but it's like this kid is happy. The mom doesn't have like everything, but the kid is safe because you never want the kid to go into the system. Like
Mm.
that's like the last case scenario. But he's told me stories that kids have gone into the system for like BS. Like, like one kid had on like a dirty shirt to school, but that's because his mom like didn't have time to clean it or whatever. Like it could be like a certain situation. So yeah, it shouldn't be it should be based off the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I'd love to make that happen. What's his name?
His name's Dontae Johnson.
Well,
I'm
Dante,
just
let's
throwing him
make
out
it happen.
there.
Let's hope he says yes. You'll go back and be like, so I did this
I'm like,
podcast
well,
and
awkward. I told him about your social worker background and all of that, but it was all because we started dating when he was a social worker. So he would come a lot. He would come home with a lot of these stories. So I just felt like it was so interesting, and it's just a part of the world that we don't really hear about a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, well, let's make it happen. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. It's been so much fun having you on the show. And obviously, for anyone who hasn't already got a copy, grab your copy of At the Outsider Advantage now so that we make sure that you guys get the value that Ciera has put her heart into this. I'll make sure there's a
Thank you.
link as well in the description and all
Okay,
the
cool.
show notes and so on. So, yeah, thank you, Ciera.
Thank you so much. This was fun.